I was in a car accident with my wife and discovered that she was unfaithful to me while she was in the hospital. I'm not sure if I need advice, a pep talk, or what. I use my main account for memes and other things, but I made this one just in case I need to vent. Life has been challenging lately, and I'm trying to find my way. I wonder what the most righteous things to do, say, and think might be in this situation. I should probably start by explaining that I'm typing this in a hospital room yesterday around 7:30 a.m. My wife and I were involved in an accident. I came out with only a few cuts and bruises, but my wife suffered a crushed shoulder, a broken collarbone, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. The doctors expect her to fully recover, but for now, they have her heavily sedated. I'm typing this out because I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it later. Writing on a phone is a daunting task, but at the moment I have the time to push through, even if I'm not sure I have the will to do it. I wouldn't be posting in this sub if things were perfect with our marriage. Obviously, I just could never imagine my wife being unfaithful in any way. My heart is broken. I feel incomplete, like part of me is missing. The saddest part is that part is sitting a mere 3 feet away from me. I had felt us growing. We have been apart for the past 3 months, but I have been unable to identify a reason for this. Mari and I have known each other since we were children. We began dating in high school and continued throughout college. She is the only woman I have ever engaged in physical intimacy with, up until recently. She could say the same about me. We married a year after college and had our first child, Michael. A year later, 3 years after my son was born, Carrie, our daughter, I've been trying to spoil her rotten, but I love my kids more than life itself. If not for them, I'm not sure I would be here right now. Thankfully, they were spending the night at my parents'. We were due to fly down to Florida for a cruise yesterday afternoon, but obviously that is all canceled. My wife decided to go out with her best friend, even though I urged her to get home and not drive around in the snow. She swore she and her best friend, Rebecca, were just going to have a few drinks since they wouldn't see each other for a week. I went to bed and slept like a baby until about 5 a.m. I got up and looked out the window to see my wife's car was not out front, but we'd gotten several more inches of snow. I assumed Mari and Becca got a little too drunk and crashed at her place. I threw some clothes on and got into I texted Mari to kindly ask her not to drive, as the snow was quite deep, and I was coming to get her. I left the message unread. I cannot help but wonder how many times I have thought about what might have happened if she had read that text. I would still be living a lie, and I would still have that gut feeling, but I wouldn't be in the state of utter misery that I now find myself in. I arrived at Becca's condo and parked in front of it. I checked the message again, but it still hadn't been read. I had been hoping Mari would read it and be ready when I arrived, but I decided I would have to go in and wake her. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in and looked at the TV room to my right. There was nobody there, so I went on to the next room, which was Rebecca's bedroom. I didn't want to wake her, so I took the stairs up to her guest room and opened the door. I remember walking into the room and seeing 2 heads peeking out from the covers. I remember leaning down to pull the comforter toward me. I even remember seeing my wife laying her head on some guy's shirtless chest. The next thing I remember was Becca, Mari, and some half-naked guy I'd never seen trying to pull me off of him. I'm not sure what happened after that. I don't regret my actions, but I do recognize that my wife's feelings are a different matter. She is a very emotional person, and her reactions can change from one minute to the next. When I came to my senses, the man said he would get his friend to the hospital. Mari was in tears, while Rebecca and I were expressing our feelings. I told her and my wife that I was leaving, and she had 5 minutes to be in my car or not to bother coming home. She was there in 3 minutes, which I felt was not the best idea. I must say that I was rather upset by the experience of driving in the snow, even with 4-wheel drive. It was another vehicle that veered into our lane and forced us through a guardrail, which caused Mari's injuries. Thankfully, the car rolled, and we were protected by airbags. However, the children are not aware that we had a wreck. I have not yet called anyone, but I feel that I should have. This has been a significant event in my life, and I am trying to assess the situation before I involve others. I'm struggling to find the words to describe how I'm feeling. I'm numb, yet I hurt like hell. It's not just from the wreck. I feel like I don't even know the person lying in that hospital bed. I want to ask her so many questions, but I'm not sure I'm ready to hear the answers. She obviously no longer loves me. No one with a soul could cheat on someone they love. I have to ask if she ever loved me. Now that she has cheated, would I ever want her to love me again? I would like to ask her if she would consider loving me again, if that were possible. I don't know the specifics of when she first cheated, but in my view, the instant she did, our marriage ended. The vows were broken, and she ended our marriage, so we are no longer man and wife. I don't need a divorce attorney to nullify my marriage. She's already done that, so I am no longer under obligation to the vows I gave. I want to be honest with you. A huge part of me wants to just walk out of this room. I want to call her parents, have informed them of the situation and that she is their problem again after all these years. We said, for better or for worse. And I meant it, but we are no longer married. Part of me wants to leave her a note and tell her that she has caused this situation, and that it will only get worse. The only thing that is keeping me in this room is my children. I want to see them so badly right now, but I have some scratches on my face. And my neck. They'd surely notice if they saw me. I feel my wife has done something wrong, and it's affected our family. My kids need her. I thought I had a life partner. As much as she ended up being, she's still my children's mother. There will be talks I'm not qualified to have, and I'm not sure where to begin. There will be injuries that need more than just a kiss. I'm a good father, but I'm not sure I'm a good mother. Father, but I can't be a mother too. I'm in need of guidance. How can I sit here and look over someone who has stabbed me in the back? Should I call her parents to come? I really don't want to be here, especially with her parents. If I don't tell them what she did, they are going to know. I'm upset. What in God's name do I tell my children? I can tell them we were in a car accident, but I'm not the kind that can fake emotion. Obviously, my wife does it with ease, but when I loathe someone, it shows in my face. They will know I'm angry at their mother. How did my life come to this? I already know I need to see a lawyer. I figured that much out, but I'm not sure how to handle this. Took so long to get approved that I didn't think my post had posted. I just started getting notifications, so I apologize for not responding. To those who offered helpful comments, I apologize for not responding sooner. For reasons I'm not sure of, I couldn't reply to questions from my first post. I could see the comments, but nobody else could see my replies. I tried posting this update in the infidelity sub last night, but I had issues. Hopefully, the same glitch doesn't happen with this update, and I can give feedback for others to better assist me. I apologize to anyone that did leave a response. I was grateful for the kind words and helpful suggestions I received in response to my initial post. After that, I decided to stay one more night in the hospital room with Mari, who was sedated and the lights were out. I sat back in the recliner, looked at the ceiling, and listened to the medical machines. I found myself wondering how my life had reached that point. Part of me felt like I was being unfair to her by staying in the same room, but part of me loved her. I didn't want to feel the love. I felt weak for it. I found myself repeatedly dwelling on positive feelings for her, but I kept coming to realize that things could not be fixed as they once were. It felt as if a natural disaster had taken the life we had built together and destroyed it. I cried a great deal. I came to understand that a significant part of my life had come to an end. The nurse came into the room the next morning to take blood. I excused myself when Mari woke up and saw me heading out the door. She called to me, but I didn't respond. I went and got some breakfast. I haven't had much of an appetite since finding out. I tried to kill some time eating and scanning through my phone. There was a text from Becca asking where Mari was. I left that unread. At 7 a.m., it was late enough to knock on her parents' door. Her dad was always an early riser. I planned to talk to him first, and if he thought his wife needed to hear it, he could wake her. I saw smoke coming from the wood stove in his workshop out back, so I knocked on the door before entering. He saw the scratches on my neck and bruise on my cheek. I explained there had been an accident. Mari had gotten the worst of it, but we needed to talk. I think he assumed I meant about the accident, so he woke my mother-in-law to hear what I had to say. We sat in the kitchen. As I explained how, as we were going around a curve, a car in the oncoming lane veered into our lane, having the heavier vehicle and all, he managed to keep us on the road until we hit the guardrail. The passenger side door caught one of the vertical I-beams mounted in concrete, even with side airbags. My wife was hit hard and sustained lots of injuries, but I told them she was stable and they expected a full recovery. They both cried, knowing their daughter had suffered, but would still be around for them to love. As soon as they suggested they would be willing to help me in any way they could, I politely informed them that the wreck was not the reason for my visit. I explained that I had woken up that morning and sent a text to ensure my wife was okay. I also told them about walking in on their daughter and an unidentified man I had never seen before and, in my state of shock, having unintentionally struck him multiple times. They were both taken aback. I informed them of the room she was in at the hospital and explained that I had always hoped they could remain friendly with me. I told them that my father was looking after them for the time being, but that I was divorcing their daughter as she had broken our vows and was no longer my wife. I was leaving their place and driving to my father's to tell the children about the accident and to break the news that we were splitting up and would no longer be together. I decided not to tell them that their mother had been unfaithful. I told my former in-laws that while I was sad about the situation, I felt it was best to end things the way they did. I told them that I wasn't the one who had caused the breakdown of our marriage. They tried to tell me I shouldn't be so hasty. They felt she had made a mistake and that her excuses were not entirely valid. I thanked them for their understanding and told them I loved having them as in-laws. I then left. My father's room was the ideal place to unburden myself of a number of concerns. I made my way to the kitchen, where I found my father enjoying a cup of coffee. He was aware that I was supposed to be on a large boat in the Caribbean, but he didn't know the specifics. I approached him and expressed my emotions, which were a mixture of sadness and frustration. He was eager to understand what had transpired, but he also recognized the need for me to process my feelings. He then led me to the den and sat me on the couch to get my mom. We both suggested she have a cup of coffee first, but she knew that if I was there alone so early, I had something unfortunate to tell them. I began by explaining about Mari cheating me, catching her, and leaving Becca. I then explained about the wreck, which was quite severe. I told them about Mari's injuries and explained that I had informed her parents only an hour before so that they could go see her. My parents were taken aback. My mother eventually inquired, "What are your plans now?" They both became emotional when I informed them that my sole remaining option was to divorce Mari and be the best father I could be for my children. As our conversation drew to a close, I heard my daughter Carrie calling out, "Daddy," and running down the stairs towards me. My son, who was also downstairs, woke up shortly after. It had been a while since I had seen them, so I spent some time hugging them, happy to see them. It took some time for me to notice the scratches on my arms. I informed them about the car accident and that their mother was in the hospital, but I was assured that she would be fine. I told them that Mari's parents would eventually pick them up to take them to see their mother, and I left it at that. I spent a day playing, talking, holding, napping, and laughing with my children, and they inspired me to want to live again. If I'm honest, I was on the fence about wanting to go on, but they are worth living for, protecting, and cherishing. Unfortunately, my wife's phone was destroyed in the wreck, so nobody had gotten a response for days. Early that night, I started getting texts from my Mills phone and knew they had to be from Mari. I ignored them, but they continued sporadically off and on through the night. The next day, I spoke with 3 law offices about filing for divorce. While I don't necessarily want or even need a legal divorce, it will likely divide assets and determine custody of our children. I am no longer concerned with who she is involved with. I have met with 2 lawyers and I am quite impressed with the latter. I will meet with the 3rd lawyer to see if he makes a good impression on me. If not, I will go with the 2nd firm's top divorce attorney. In any case, I will have removed 3 of the top legal sources from her list of candidates, which I see as a positive step. My main concern is custody. I am not seeking full custody and I don't think it is necessary. I would prefer not to pursue this further if I had the option. They need their mother in their lives, but because of her actions, she will no longer be a part of my life. A nanny can drop the kids off on time whenever they need to be where they need to be, which is not a reason for me to continue discussing this with her. I obviously never knew her, so I don't see a reason for me to interact with someone I don't know. I'm going back to work next week, which was supposed to be our cruise. I think it would be best not to tell anyone at work that we didn't go or anything about the wreck. Of course, they will be seeing me driving the rental car in question. If I got a new car, I'm not sure if I need to explain things to HR. I don't want my personal business to be aired out for all to see. I feel humiliated as it is without news leaking out. Divorce is sometimes necessary, but it always represents a failure. I'm done being an anchor for a ship. That particular situation has already come to an end, and for those who were right to insist on getting checked for STDs, I have undergone a full screening. I am grateful to say that the results were all clear. Even that was enough to make me feel like some sort of pervert in a trench coat when I did nothing wrong. I assumed by this time that Mari would have left the hospital. Her parents did not even attempt to bring her to the house. They could not have contacted me anyway due to Mari's constant texts. I was not reading as soon as I could get the divorce papers filed. The divorce papers have been filed and served. I can finally move on from what I now recognize as the biggest mistake of my life. Her actions have made all of that time and effort seem pointless. If I had to do it over again, I would choose a life with someone else. I would choose someone who would be faithful and loyal. Her greatest asset is what she threw away: the ability to be trusted. She lost the ability to have someone to call her own. She lost her sense of belonging. I will miss that, but I know that what I lost was a lie. I regret to say that her actions meant nothing to her. People often prefer a beautiful lie to an ugly truth. I am not one of those people. Many people wanted to know the details of my wife's infidelity, including who she had been unfaithful with, why it had been going on for so long, and how long it had been going on. I am sorry, but I do not have that information to share. There is no excuse to cheat beyond that when you have made a life bond. I have made a promise to uphold and make decisions for the other person, and I regret that she has chosen to act in a way that goes against this. I am grateful that I never got to know her better and that I had the chance to meet someone else. She had no right to give me a life and then take it all from me against my will. The man I was before her betrayal will never exist again. The woman she was never existed in the life I had, and she was not the person I thought she was. I am not sure if I want to live in this way. I am not sure what to do next. I'm not sure where to begin. I'm still trying to figure out what to say. I'll start by saying that I did manage to get a very good lawyer. Her firm is rated the highest at representing men in divorce cases in my area. Instead of passing my case off to someone else on the legal team, she took on my case as her own. Everyone at the firm has been kind and supportive. I can tell they don't just care about getting their retainer and payoff. My lawyer has been extremely helpful in supporting my well-being and mental health throughout this process. After agreeing to take my case, we went over the usual forms I needed to fill out. I provided information about property and all bank account details, as well as ballpark estimates of our income. After discussing the accident and what I saw just before it happened, she asked if I had undergone an STD panel. I informed her that I had, and that all results had come back negative. She then inquired if I had documented the I informed her that I hadn't been thinking rationally enough at the time to do that. She then contacted a colleague at her firm and arranged for us to meet the next day. I live in a state with a different legal system, so while I was aware that Mari was unfaithful, I needed tangible evidence to support my case. We set up one of her staff members to serve as a liaison between me and Mari's father regarding communication and to arrange drop-offs. I asked her to kindly let my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law know that my ex could have the kids that upcoming weekend and the following week. Nadia then inquired if I had arranged therapy for me and my children. I explained that I was scheduled to have my first therapy appointment that week, but as the children had not yet been informed, I was holding off on that. She told me that as soon as I felt they were in need of any professional attention, I should let her know, as she had several resources available. She also recommended therapists and expressed sincere condolences for my situation. While I typically dislike lawyers, I felt this one had a genuine concern for my well-being. She provided a list of tasks to complete before our next meeting, many of which were similar to advice shared here. When she suggested visiting the drugstore to get 2 DNA kits, I didn't think much of it, as it seemed to be standard protocol. On the evening in question, I returned home with the children. I collected cheek swabs from both myself and the children and then sealed everything up. The following morning, I took the children to school and then mailed them off. 2 days later, which was Friday, I received an email from the laboratory. I had gone to work that morning and was just coming back from lunch when I received the email. I decided to wait until I got to my computer to view it. At my desk, I opened the first email and clicked a link. The results indicated that my son Michael is, in fact, my son. I opened the other email and clicked the link. I read what it said and then read it again. I was at a loss for words. I just started shaking my head. I knew I had to leave the office before I broke down, but I managed to take screenshots of both results and email them to myself as photo files. I went to my car and began to cry as I realized that it became apparent that my daughter Carrie was not, in fact, my daughter. I was left with the overwhelming feeling that losing a daughter was not as painful as it would be to have an arm cut off. I was at a loss as to how to describe this experience. I didn't know who to call. I sat there, crying, and wishing with all my heart that I could wake up from this nightmare. I downloaded the 2 files from my email account and texted the pictures to my lawyer within 20 seconds. Nadia called, asking I informed her of my location, and she advised me to remain there while she arranged for someone from the firm to meet me shortly. I ended the call and opened the door, whereupon I began to vomit uncontrollably. By the time I had recovered somewhat, one of the paralegals arrived to collect me. She took me to the firm and, as soon as Nadia had concluded her meeting with a client, she ushered me into her office. She informed me that, on occasion, the tests may yield inaccurate results. She empathized with my distress and acknowledged my right to be upset. However, she suggested that we consider retesting Carrie and me at a local laboratory to minimize the risk of contamination. I was initially taken aback by the situation, even after learning of Mari's infidelity. I had assumed the DNA test on the children was merely a formality. I had never imagined my wife would be unfaithful, but it was difficult to fathom that she could be involved with someone else. Baby, if there's any truth to this, I don't know who I married. I couldn't even confront Mari if I wanted to. I didn't have concrete proof yet. I couldn't imagine how we'd ever have that conversation if the results confirmed what we suspected. One of the ladies at the firm had a blood pressure cup and checked M to make sure it wasn't dangerous levels. It was elevated, and I did feel like I was close to a panic attack. Yet I was numb and I was overcome with a sense of disbelief and uncertainty. I couldn't fathom a future where my daughter was no longer my daughter. I was immensely grateful that the children were staying with their mother. I began to contemplate the possibility that the test results could be erroneous. If Carrie was indeed my daughter and Michael was not my son, I knew I couldn't wait 2 days to ascertain the truth. I arranged for Carrie to be picked up the following day and taken back to Mari. The test was conducted in a sterile environment by trained medical staff, so there was no mix-up. I am not the biological father of the child in question, and while I was not present for the results, I was informed that they were received by the mother. I was quite emotional when I received the results, and I am grateful that Carrie was not present to witness it. I sent the results to my lawyer, who encouraged me to seek support from my family. I did so, and it was beneficial. I got into my car and drove to my dad's, crying the whole way. When I got there and saw my mom, she sensed that something was wrong, but I couldn't get it out of me. After a while, I finally managed to tell her that Carrie is not my daughter. My mom asked me what happened, and I told her as much as I could, but I was still too upset to repeat it. After about 30 seconds of silence, other than me weeping uncontrollably, my mom stood and got her cell phone. She called my dad and told him to hurry home, but please be careful. I had to break the news to my dad that there was some unfortunate news. He was eager to hear more, so I told him as little as I could. My mom was very supportive and urged him to be safe and get home as soon as he could. He arrived in about 20 minutes, and we all just had a long cry together. I tried to console my dad, and he did the same for my mom and me. They were both relieved to hear that Michael was safe and mine. They then expressed concern that they were relieved to only be losing one grandchild. They inquired about my plans. I informed them that I was unsure of what the future held for me, but I was certain that Carrie would never lack for anything she needed, and that she would have most of the things she wanted. Child support was not a concern at that moment. I was experiencing a range of emotions, and I felt even worse for Carrie, who was innocent and had done nothing to deserve this tragedy. I considered whether I wanted custody. I began to wonder if Mari knew or suspected. I felt the need for some answers. I met with Nadia after work on Monday. She informed me that she had met with a private detective hired to follow Mari due to the scene of the accident. It seemed that Mari hadn't been out of the house to cheat anymore, so I wasn't surprised that the detective didn't have recent evidence. However, Nadia had asked me to bring Mari's old cell phone from a drawer at home. He was able to gain access to nearly every app as if he were on her destroyed phone. He found numerous nude images and messages sent and received to and from various individuals. There were also many messages and sexting with enough admission of guilt in them to sway any judge. I was asked if I wanted to see any of the pictures or read the texts, but I declined. Nadia and I did need to plan how I was going to confront Mari about Carrie. She thought it would be best to do it in person. Her office. If Mari could be talked into it. She called Mari's mom's cell in front of me. I heard Mari's voice for the first time since I left the hospital. Nadia got straight to the point and told her she needed to meet with me to explain a few things. My ex declared she'd been waiting and wanting to talk. She was asked if her lawyer could be contacted. Mari said she didn't have one, but she was willing to come the next afternoon to talk. I was hoping to get through the next day without crying at work. I was also hoping to be able to appear to be getting things done. I was barely able to keep lunch down, but I left at 3 o'clock and headed to the firm feeling nauseous. I arrived early on purpose. I wanted her to be forced to enter, sit on the side away from the door, and be unable to approach me. I was scrolling through pictures of our perfect family that never existed when she came in. She needed assistance walking, and she was still in 2 casts from the wreck. I didn't have to worry about her trying for a hug. I thought she might be playing it up for sympathy, but we did have a bad wreck. I finally wanted her just to sit the hell down so I could ask her to explain herself once we were all seated. Water was offered, and the meeting began. My lawyer started by asking Mari if she minded us recording the meeting. She was fine with it as soon as we started recording. My soon-to-be ex-wife began to I asked her to clarify her statement. I then asked her directly how many men she had been unfaithful to me with and when it had started. There were enough confirmed instances of infidelity to suggest that the man I caught her with was not the first. She was unaware of the full extent of our knowledge. I suggested that she reduce the severity of the incident before the wreck by only admitting to what she knew. I asked her again for a rough estimate of the number of men she had been unfaithful to me with since our son was born. She informed me that she had been intimate with other men since our son was born. I asked her for a rough estimate of the number of men she had slept with since then. This seemed to give her a moment's pause, but she continued to act as if she was unaware of the situation. At that point, she still believed that it was all a game, and I was becoming increasingly agitated. Nadia placed her hand on my shoulder and gently pushed me back, away from the table. She then turned to Mari and asked if I was a good father. Mari gave me a glowing review, saying that she could not imagine a better father to raise her children. She then asked if the other father of her child would be a good dad too. As Mari was asking what other father she was talking about, my counsel slid the paternity results for Carrie across the table. Despite my reservations about the situation, I felt it was important to be there to see her reaction in person. She seemed shocked to know Carrie isn't mine and I had to step in and clarify that I wasn't trying to attack her, but rather, I was simply trying to understand the situation. I asked her who Car's father is. She looked down with a hint of shame, and I thought she might be protecting someone when she said she didn't know for sure who Car's father is. Mari saw me truly break down in tears for the first time. I just couldn't take it anymore and lost it. Mari was crying, but asked to try and explain. She reminded me about the postpartum depression she experienced after Michael was born. I did my best to be as supportive as I could at the time. I can say with certainty that I spent every moment I could looking after my son, so she could have time to herself. There were days she was so depressed she couldn't even get out of bed, and I looked after all of us. However, I was doing it for the family I had. I remembered that I had actually been foolish enough to think that making it through had made it better. Our relationship became stronger. She did not blame it on Rebecca, but when she first took Mari out on a few girls' nights, I was relieved. They had been best friends for years but hadn't seen much of each other during the pregnancy. Mari said she had a few drinks on the second night and felt guilty for a while. She said she had been feeling resentful for months. She was young and free to be with whomever she chose. She informed us that she began engaging in sexual encounters with men on the nights she would go out with Rebecca. Until the night before our accident, she had never stayed out late or returned home late. Over the years, she stated that she did not want to develop feelings for any of the men she was involved with. She claimed that she always used protection and never slept with the same man more than 3 times. She said that she just wanted sex. I was taken aback when I learned that your wife was. It was a difficult situation to navigate. I felt like I was learning about my wife's past in a way that was not entirely transparent. I wanted to express my frustration, but I was trying to understand the full extent of her actions. Nadia asked her if she had any idea who the father of her child might be. My wife said that she always assumed it was mine. My lawyer suggested that there might have been a misunderstanding and that perhaps a condom broke when my wife confessed. That did happen a few times with a few guys I lost contact with. I asked her who in the world she was because I didn't know the person telling me such horrible things. I asked her when she started hating me and why. I asked what I had ever done to warrant being treated like that. How could she do this to her daughter? I was very upset. She took it knowing it was all true after what she just told me. I feel it's important to mention that I'm not happy about her divorce. What was once a happy marriage has now become a very painful experience. I've lost a wife and daughter, which is 2 losses for me. My wife has lost her husband, which is 3 losses for her. My daughter has lost her father and brother-in-law, who is now her half-sibling. This has also affected her grandparents and in-laws. I believe that Mari has caused significant damage to 2 entire families. I'm not sure how her parents will react to what she has done. I will let them see all the evidence the PI finds. She admitted to me,